Amen. For those of us who weren't here last week, at the prayer meeting,
I need prayer, please. A member of ours just met in a serious accident back home, so.
So if you go to early writings, and we've discussed it's composed of 3 books. The third book is Spiritual Gifts Volume 1, and approximately 60% through that book we come to the Millerite history, and it's described in a number of chapters, the first one being William Miller, First Angel's Message, Second Angel's Message, then the Advent Movement Illustrated, and the last one is another illustration. So we're looking at the 4th of 5 chapters that deal with the Millerite history. It's called the Advent Movement Illustrated. We got through the first 2 paragraphs last week, but we're just going to read the paragraphs again and just make comment on them before we go on to the 3rd paragraph, which would be 241 paragraph 1. As you're reading this, bear in mind that this is the story of the Millerite history, and it's another illustration of that history. And it's an illustration that often we don't have. For those of us who are either attending the classes or watching them, you'll see that many of the thoughts and ideas that we have been discussing are actually brought to view in this chapter in a way that you may not have noticed or thought about in the past. I saw a number of companies that seemed to be bound together by cords. Many in these companies were in total darkness. Their eyes were directed downward to the earth, and there seemed to be no connection between them and Jesus. But scattered through these different companies were persons whose countenances looked light, and whose eyes were raised to heaven. Beams of light from Jesus, like rays from the sun, were imparted to them. An angel bade me look carefully, and I saw an angel watching over every one of those who had a ray of light, while evil angels surrounding those who were in darkness. I heard the voice of an angel cry, "Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come." So you see this progression in this first paragraph, and where does it begin?
Darkness.
Begins in the period of darkness. So we're in this period of darkness, and in this period of darkness, what do we see? We see companies and these 3, I've got 3, these various companies are all bound together. I saw a number of companies that seem to be bound together by cords. So there's these companies, but it seems to say that not only are the companies separate from one another, but what about the companies themselves? I saw a number of companies that seem to be bound together by cords. So all the companies are actually bound together? Is that what that is saying? Is that how we read that? So a number of companies that seem to be bound together by cords. So the companies themselves are bound together. So we've got individual companies or groups, and each of those, so all those companies are bound together. So there's a cord that binds all of these together as a singular unit, if you like. So there's these separate companies and they're all bound together. Many of these companies were in total darkness. Their eyes were directed downward to the earth, and there seemed to be no connection between them and Jesus. So in the time of darkness, before the reform line, many people in those companies, they were looking earthward, not heavenward, and there was no connection between them and Jesus. But scattered through those different companies, so there were individuals in those companies who had light. It says that their countenances, their faces looked light, and their eyes were raised to heaven. So in this period, there are some people who have some kind of light. We're okay with that? Halfway into the paragraph, it says, beams of light from Jesus, like rays from the sun, were imparted to them. An angel bade me look carefully, and I saw an angel watching over every one of those who had a ray of light, while evil angels surrounded those who were in darkness. I heard the voice of an angel cry, fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. So we discussed last week that this is the arrival of the first angel's message. Beams of light from Jesus, like rays from the sun, were imparted to them. Imparted means what? It means to be given something that's not yours, as opposed to imputed, which means you end up taking possession of something. There's a subtle difference between the two. So these people are given light from Jesus, and when this is happening, the angel says, look carefully at what this is. And what you then see is that there's a guardian angel, if you like. Doesn't say guardian, but there's an angel watching all of those who had this light at the who's had this ray of light that's been given to them. And evil angels are surrounding those in darkness. And then she hears the voice of an angel crying the first angel's message. So this second part of the paragraph is dealing with the time of the end, the imparting of the first angel's message and this great light that comes upon God's people. What do we see? Who is this light given to? Those who already had their countenances that look like light. So it's selective. So it's only the people here who had bright faces. They're the only ones that are going to receive this light that's going to be imparted here at the time of the end. So when this angel comes down with this light from heaven, only a select people can actually receive it. It's not ad hoc, it's premeditated based upon your previous experience. Paragraph 2. Glorious light then rested down upon these companies to enlighten all who would receive it. Some of those who were in darkness received the light and rejoiced. Others resisted the light from heaven, saying that it was sent to lead them astray. The light passed away from them, and they were left in darkness. Those who had received the light from Jesus joyfully cherished the increase of precious light which was shed upon them. Their faces beamed with holy joy, while their gaze was directed upward to Jesus with intense interest, and their voices were heard in harmony with the voice of the angel. Fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. As they raised this cry, I saw those who were in darkness thrusting them with side and with shoulder. Then many who cherished the sacred light broke the cords which confined them and stood out separated from those companies. As they were doing this, men belonging to the different companies and revered by them passed through, some with pleasing words and others with wrathful looks and threatening gestures, and fastened the cords which were weakening. These men were constantly saying, God is with us. We stand in the light. We have the truth. I inquired who these men were, and was told that they were ministers and leading men who had rejected the light themselves and were unwilling that others should receive it. So, those of us who have been in class, we're in chapter 19 now, and remember we spoke about the title, which is what? Light through darkness. And we saw in class what that actually meant was the light is penetrating through the darkness. And if you can accept that as an explanation of what that title means, I think you can see it in this passage really clearly. So, not only can we see that, but the other thing that we saw just from that title, and also as we began to look at chapter 19, is that the darkness does not stop at the time of the end. Yeah? In fact, what you have, borrowing from the language of the chapter, if this is an age, this age is full of what? It's all full of darkness. But what happens is at a particular point, which we have chosen to call, we didn't really choose it, we were given it, the time of the end, what begins to happen? Light begins to come from heaven and penetrate this darkness. And if you recall, that's the model that we developed from the title, chapter 19. And that's exactly what's being portrayed here. The darkness continues or perpetuates past the time of the end. It doesn't stop there in the way that we would normally understand a reform line. Glorious light then rested down upon these companies. So here at the time of the end, I'll just show this in limited fashion. I'll just do two. There's someone who's in darkness, and there was someone whose countenance was light, I think it says. It says, a glorious light then rested down upon the company. So here at the time of the end, this light only rests upon the person who had the bright countenance. So the light is only coming here. We then move on, and then what's happening? If these are the companies, and in each company there's someone who's bright, what does it say? The glorious light, or a glorious light, then rested down upon these companies to enlighten all who would receive it. So this light, and we're going to see it's the same first angel's message, is now going to be offered to everybody. First it was the select group, and now it's everybody. So I'm not. I guess I'm not asking for assent, because this is he's just recapping what we looked at last week. But if anybody's new or anybody's thought about that, then please feel free to say if you agree or disagree. They're all bound together still, and now light is going to be shining on everyone. So everyone now has an opportunity, whether or not you're in darkness before or not, to enlighten all who would receive it. So even those in darkness now have an opportunity to receive this glorious light. So those people are still in darkness. I want us to see that. The darkness is past the time of the end, and we don't normally think about that. Some of those who were in darkness received this light and rejoiced. So now there are other people who are going to receive the light. So the numbers begin to increase. Others who were in darkness resisted the light from heaven, saying that it was sent to lead them astray. So this message, fear God, give him glory, for the hour of his judgment is come. These people who are in darkness already, they're still in darkness, now they're going to resist this light. And what is this light? First angel's message. So they're going to resist it. What are they resisting? They say, This is not true. What is not true? Yeah, what message? What message is not true? I know it's first angel, but what is it that's not true? It's got to speak louder.
The hour of his judgment.
So they're saying that this message that says the hour of his judgment is come has been sent by Satan, I presume, to lead them astray, because they already know about the hour of his judgment, or whatever they think that means. And this message that's come now, which essentially is saying the hour of his judgment is come, it's here. We've already discussed in class what is come means. Doesn't mean it's present tense, it's about to happen. We've discussed that. They said that this message is untrue, it's not a true message. The light passed away from them, and they were left in total darkness. So they have an opportunity to receive the light. Once they reject it because they say it's not true, then they're left in darkness. If we were to draw in other spirit prophecy quotes, we would say that this was the unsealing of the book of Daniel. And the unsealing of the book of Daniel is what? What is being unsealed? Someone else.
Time.
A message in relation to time. Daniel 8:14, that's what gets unsealed. So the unsealing of the book of Daniel is essentially working out 457 and then getting your dates correct, the transition from BC to AD, and now you have a message built upon time. And they're saying all of this is sent to lead them astray. Those who had received the light from Jesus joyfully cherished the increase of precious light which was shed upon them. So, what's that? The increase of knowledge. The reason why this chapter's I find really interesting, informative, that it's one of the clearest places that you'll see everything that we've taught about reform lines being brought to view, and we never really go to this chapter. It's not like we got our reform line and developed all of that terminology from this chapter, because we didn't. Many of us were looking at this at the first time, maybe not literally the first time, but we haven't looked at it in detail, and you see so much of what we already understand clearly laid out. Brother Tyler.
Did you just read that said was that you marked as the increase of knowledge?
Those who had received the light, I mean 240.2.
Okay.
So I've read 240.2 and I'm just going back over it and rereading it in sections. Those who received the light from Jesus joyfully cherished the increase of precious light which was shed upon them. Just says the word increase. Their faces beamed with holy joy, while their gaze was directed upward toward Jesus with intense interest. So their faces begin to shine with joy, and their voices were heard in harmony with the voice of the angel. Fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. So now, this angel that came down here hasn't stopped speaking, because this light is a symbol of this angel's work. But now what's happening? These people here that are in light, what are they doing? They're now speaking the first angel's message. So these people are speaking the first angel's message, plus whom? Plus the angel. You can see that? It says, and their voices were heard in harmony with the voice of the angel. So the angel is now still speaking, and these people are going to say exactly what he's speaking, and they're doing it in a harmonious fashion. So it goes from a singular angel now to the same angel but multiple people. And we said that that was what? The empowerment of the message. As they raised this cry, I saw those who were in darkness thrusting them with side and shoulder. Then many who cherished the sacred light, we'll stop there. I saw those who were in darkness thrust them with side and shoulder. What's that? What's happening now? Those who have rejected the message, what are they doing? They're persecuting them now. So they've become not only rejectors of the message, they've become the enemies of the message, because now they're fighting. So now we've got the enemies. And I'll put work. So we can see the work of the enemies. Then many who cherished the sacred light broke the cords which confined them and stood out separated from those companies. So remember, even in all through this history, even though the numbers are increasing, those who have light, they're joining the angel, they're still connected in those companies with these cords. Before we just go on and what we've just read, we've got the various companies all joined together. So what would we think these companies are a symbol of? They're united, but they're still distinct and separate from one another. The churches, or I call them the denominations. So these are the various denominations, and they're still running through this history. So these people who are now accepting the first angel's message, joining them, they're still remaining part of the denomination. So what's that teaching us in this history? From what we know about Millerite history.
They stayed in the denominations till after.
William Miller had taken a policy that he wouldn't have a sectarian message. And the sectarian message is a sect. And the sect, you can say it in a negative way, but just to give it in a neutral fashion, is just a group of people who have a distinct belief which is separate from everyone else. Sometimes people use the word cults. So he didn't want to form a sect. He didn't want to say the people who believe my message, the judgment hour message, will form our own denomination, our own separate group. He didn't want to do that, and you see that built into this story, that they remain in the companies all tied up together. But by the time you get to hear the work of the enemies, then you see that these people are now going to break the cords which confine them, and they begin to stand separate from the companies. So the way it's worded here, it's voluntary. They're not being thrust out or thrown out. We saw the thrusting of the enemies here, but this was not to get rid of them. The thrusting was for what purpose? I would suggest to silence them, to stop them giving this message. It wasn't to get rid of the people, it was just to keep them quiet so they wouldn't cause a disturbance. Now, because there's this struggle going on, the people leave. So we've got these companies, and we see that the cord has been broken, and these people are standing separate and distinct from them. As they were doing this, as they separate, men belonging to the different companies and revered by them passed through each of the companies. So there's a person in each one of these companies who's revered, and he's walking around the company, and he's going to start doing a work. Some with pleasing words, others with wrathful looks and threatening gestures began to do something. And what they began to do was to fasten the cords which were weakening. And as they were doing this, they were constantly saying, God is with us, we stand in the light, we have the truth. So the sentence before said that these people broke the cords, and in this sentence it says that the cords were weakening, that were tying the people together. So these people, these revered men, are going to take these cords and they're going to tie them back together to keep the people in, lest any more escape. And these men were constantly saying, God is with us, we stand in the light, we have the truth. I inquired who these men were and was told that they were ministers and leading men who had rejected the light themselves and were unwilling that others should receive it. And that's as far as we got last week. Any questions or any thoughts? Can we see that these ministers and leading men, so they're not just ministers, these ministers and leading men, it's not accidental what they're doing. They've rejected the light themselves and they don't want anyone else to receive it. Now they may be deluded because they think all of this light is lies, but they're really without excuse, because to reject something means you have an opportunity to have accepted it. It's not some kind of accident or mistake on their part. It's premeditated and malicious. Next paragraph. We'll read the paragraph in wholly. So this is new, we haven't gone to this. I saw those who cherished the light looking upward with ardent desire, expecting Jesus to come and take them to himself. Soon a cloud passed over them, and their faces were sorrowful. I inquired the cause of this cloud, and was shown that it was their disappointment. The time when they expected their Saviour had passed, and Jesus had not come. As discouragement settled upon the waiting ones, the ministers and leading men, whom I had before noticed, rejoiced, and all those who had rejected the light triumphed greatly, while Satan and his evil angels also exulted. What is being described here? What event is this?
April 19th.
Sorry?
April 19th.
April 19th. So that's the date. What's the event?
First disappointment.
Okay, so this is the disappointment. I saw those who cherished the light looking upward with ardent desire, expecting Jesus to come and take them to himself. So, as they've separated, the leading ministers have grouped everyone together, and now there's this separation that's happened, and the separation that's happened precedes the disappointment. Can we see that? So there's a separation before the disappointment. And they're expecting to see Jesus. But soon a cloud passed over them, and their faces were sorrowful. I inquired the cause of this cloud, and was shown that it was their disappointment. The time when they expected their Saviour had passed, and Jesus had not come. So, this is 1843, and this is April the 19th, and we call it April the 19th, 1844. But according to the Millerites, it's the beginning of the year, the first day of the first month of 1844, April the 19th. As discouragement settled upon the waiting ones, the ministers and leading men, whom I had before noticed, rejoiced, and all those who had rejected the light triumphed greatly, while Satan and his evil angels also exalted. So it takes you onto the other side of the disappointment, and it's going to describe that all of these people, the leading men and the rejectors, what they're going to be. it says that they're happy. So the rejectors are happy. And what do we call that? The mocking. This is when they're mocking the people. paragraph 2. Then I heard the voice of another angel saying, Babylon is fallen. A light shone upon those desponding ones, and with ardent desires for his appearing, they again fixed their eyes upon Jesus. I saw a number of angels conversing with the one who had cried, Babylon is fallen. And these united with him in the cry, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. The musical voices of these angels seemed to reach everywhere. An exceeding bright and glorious light shone around those who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them. Their faces shone with excellent glory, and they united with the angels in the cry, Behold, the bridegroom cometh. As they harmoniously raised the cry among the different companies, those who rejected the light pushed them, and with angry looks scorned and derided them. But angels of God wafted their wings over the persecuted ones, while Satan and his angels were seeking to press their darkness around them, to lead them to reject the light from heaven. So, before we comment, even at this late stage, what's in the last sentence, what do we still see? We still see the darkness. And it's not too late for all these people to go into darkness, even at this late stage. So, we might argue that the darkness is lessening, but it's as full now and as capable of bringing you down as it was even before the time of the end. So this darkness runs all the way through this line. So what's being marked here? Then I heard the voice of another angel saying, Babylon is fallen. So you hear a voice, and then what do you have after the voice? Then heard a voice of another angel saying, Babylon is fallen. A light shone upon those desponding ones. Are we okay with that? So, I'm going to mark that angel here, the arrival of the second angel. And what I want us to see is when it discusses the second angel, it first mentions what? Voice. And then what? Light. So voice and light. Now if we go back to the first paragraph, halfway down the paragraph, I'll go a little bit before that. But scattered through these different companies, are we all there? Were persons whose countenances looked light and whose eyes were raised to heaven. Beams of light. Beams of light from Jesus, like rays from the sun, were imparted to them. And an angel bade me look carefully. And I saw an angel watching over every one of those who had light, while evil angels surrounded those who were in darkness. Then I heard what? Voice. So, when she introduces the subject of the first angel, it's introduced with light and then a voice, and the second angel a voice, then a light. And I think we can all see that we have a chiasm there just in her, the way she's describing that. Then heard the voice of another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. A light shone upon those desponding ones, and with ardent desires for his appearing, they again fixed their eyes upon Jesus. I saw a number of angels conversing with the one who had cried, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. So this angel says, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. We're okay with that. And then what's being introduced? More angels. And it's angels in the plural. I saw a number of angels speaking with the one who had cried, Babylon is fallen, and these united with him in the cry, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. What's that saying? Before we said here, what word did we pick up? Harmony. And what word are we picking up here?
United.
Sorry? United. These angels that are coming down, what are they saying? Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. And it says they're uniting with him. What's happened then? With respect to the second angel, what's he doing? What's the second angel saying now? Or how do we read that? And these united with him in the cry, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Has that angel changed his word? Or are they saying two separate things at the same time?
It doesn't say him, it says that they united with the angels.
Did I miss that? I saw a number of angels conversing with the one who had cried, Babylon is fallen, and these angels united with him
Oh, I was down lower.
in the cry, behold, the bridegroom cometh.
Maybe that's a part of the second angel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to get into the intricacies of it, but it seems to me that it says united and in harmony. In harmony, I think we all agree that they're saying the same thing, otherwise it wouldn't be a harmonious voice. That this angel changes his language from Babylon is fallen to behold, the bridegroom cometh, because they're all going to be united in their statement. The musical voices of these angels seemed to reach everywhere. An exceeding bright and glorious light shone around those who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them. Where was that? Where was this light that was imparted to them? How far did we go back? Was it here?
No, the darkness.
No, it said a light shone upon those desponding ones.
Wouldn't it be after the disappointment?
Yeah.
An exceeding bright and glorious light shone around those who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them. So when it says the light which had been imparted to them, which light is this one? I want to know where do we pick up that light?
First paragraph.
241, paragraph 2.
240.1.
Brother Theodore's picking up 241, paragraph 2. If you go to 241,
Yeah.
paragraph 2, then I heard the voice of another angel
Yeah, the
saying,
light
Babylon
shone
is
upon the
fallen,
desponding
fallen.
ones. Yeah.
A
that's what
light
I'm
shone around those desponding ones.
Mhm.
So I think it's that light that's getting picked up. This one here. Not this one here. Sorry?
Why?
Why?
Well, because that's the last light mentioned, and these are the people that are being talked about. They're not going to go back to the first group of people.
Brother James?
Well, in the first paragraph it says,
beams of light from Jesus were imparted to them. And the second sentence of the second paragraph, or third sentence, it says, those who received the light from Jesus joyfully cherished it. And so you have the same two words in this paragraph.
So this sentence says, an exceeding bright and glorious light shone around those who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them.
Would it not be the same light that was imparted to them in the beginning?
So you're saying this light here is going to be imparted to the people who had received this light. Is that how you're reading that? Brother Nathan?
In the first paragraph it says that this company who received the light had their eyes fixed upwards. And in this paragraph that we just read says that they again fixed their eyes to Jesus. So there was a moment where I guess their eyes were not fixed heavenward. And maybe if their eyes are not fixed heavenward, they won't receive the light until they look again.
Sister Kathy?
In the first paragraph, it says beams of light, which is rays. They're not very bright, but they're still light. And in this paragraph, it says exceedingly bright and glorious light. So they're different. It's an increase.
All I want us to decide is it says an exceeding bright and glorious light shone around those who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them. This light which had been imparted to them, is that the light that's at the beginning of this paragraph, or is it the light that was at the very beginning of this story? That's what my question is. Brother Theodore is saying it's this light that's just at the beginning of the paragraph, and some people, I think other people are suggesting that it's the light that was at the beginning. Brother Tyler.
It would seem like, and I could be wrong with it, I'm not being, dogmatic about it, but it would seem like it'd just be the one that's mentioned 2 sentences before. The immediate context of the paragraph kind of points you back to the light that was just mentioned before. But maybe that's wrong, maybe there's a better way to read that, but at least at first glance it seems like that one.
Sister Brittany, do you have your hand?
I might be reading too quickly, but it just seems to be the one from the beginning, because in the first paragraph in the middle it says beams of light from Jesus like rays from the sun were imparted. So there's an imparting in the beginning. The paragraph after that says that there's a group of people that cherish this light that was imparted. So there's a cherishing of the light that was imparted, and then the paragraph that we're on says those who had cherished the light that had been imparted received this exceeding bright and glorious light. But I could be reading too quickly.
Okay, I don't think you're reading too quickly. That's what Brother James has said a moment ago. That he picked up, cherished and imparted from the beginning of the chapter. Sister Sue Ellen.
Is it possible that it could be both? I mean, people that were there in the beginning and then they carried on and told others, and then others joined the movement, and then they might have had us been part of at different times.
So let me ask the question. Beginning of this paragraph. Babylon is fallen, heard the voice of an angel, and then it says, a light shone upon those desponding ones. What is that light that's shining upon those disappointed people?
The angel.
The second angel's message. That's what's shining upon them.
Yep.
You agree with that? So they're receiving the second angel, and then they're going to basically be reinvigorated, if I can put it that way. With ardent desires, they again fix their eyes upon Jesus. Then it says, I saw a number of angels who came from heaven, presumably, and spoke with this other angel, and they had a new message. Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. And they're doing this with this cry. Their voices reached everywhere. And then it says, an exceeding bright and glorious light shone around them, around those. What is this exceeding bright and glorious light? So it's this message, behold the bridegroom cometh, which we're going to call the midnight cry. It says they cried. So this is the midnight cry. So that's what that light is. And it says it shone around those who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them. So who's receiving the midnight cry message? Is it the people who have received the second angel, or is it the people who had received the first angel? Because that would allow us to decide this phrase when it says, who had cherished the light which had been imparted to them. So we're still not decided upon that. Let's read on. Their faces shone with excellent glory, and they united with the angels in the cry, behold the bridegroom cometh. As they harmoniously, picks up the same word, harmony, raised the cry among the different companies. So it seems to be that whatever's happening here, you have this united because the two angels are going to unite, but now you have harmony. And the harmony is the people and the angels. One second. And this harmony of the human and the divine, the human and the angels, the people who are participating in that, when you go back to this one, the harmonious work occurred when the people had accepted this light. So why would it not be that the harmonious work would have been those people who had accepted this light, not this one? Because then you have exactly the same pattern. It's not stretching all the way back here, but it's dealing with this dynamic. So I'll hold that point, Brother Bob.
My only thought is as we're following this narrative and we're drawing this picture, you have people that received the light from the first angel, and then you have a second angel, and the people are receiving that light, and then we're saying, which light is it? Well, you can't receive the message of the second angel unless you receive the message of the first angel. So I see them all combining and swelling and going forward, and at any point if people start to reject it, then they're off the path.
We don't see anyone going off the path in this story.
Not yet.
And it's distinct, the messages are separate, so I've tried to keep them separate light, because the light is a separate message. And I just want us to come to a position of unity that this glorious light here, is it following this light or is it following this light? Sister Elisa.
I think it's following the second light, but only because if we follow the cherished ones in 240.2, let me just make sure. Yes, 240.2, that light whom they which they cherished caused them to break the cords. So they've already had an experience of coming out that Babylon had fallen. They left.
No, Babylon hadn't fallen when they broke those cords.
Oh, that's right. Well,
they broke the cords long before Babylon fell.
They had an experience with the first angel, which I guess in my mind made it easier for them to accept the second angel, and then unite with the angel to say, the bridegroom, behold, the bridegroom cometh. Just because they had that experience. Maybe
if you're going to do that, then you're going to say it's this light. That's what you just said, it sounded to me. You're saying all of this is going to help them to get to here.
Which it does.
but it's some people, Brother Theodore, and he's saying this helps them to get to this.
But they couldn't have gotten to.
That's a separate, distinct point.
Yeah.
But it's where you want to target your focus on. Is it this that brings you to this?
Yes.
Or is it, the breaking of the chords, or all of this that brings you to that?
Well, I have a difficult time because the people from the empowerment of the second at the midnight cry, they aren't brand new people. They're the ones that have come through the whole experience. So it has to be, well, it doesn't have to be, but the way I see it is that it's because of the second light, but they had to go through the first. So the the light that was cherished by them, it connects the whole history previously. But the work that's being done is through the second, in this particular instance.
The work. The light, you mean?
Yes.
So it's this light here.
Yeah.
This one here.
Amen.
Who had their hand up? Greg?
Amen.
I was going to say something, but it doesn't show it in the passage, penalty. The light, I think, refers to the second light because there's a separation taking place at April 19. And if it was referring to the first light, then that light would still be covering all those before the separation had taken place, so they would still be receiving the light. Whereas the passage says that the light shone upon the desponding ones, so it's after the separation has taken place.
So the point that Brother Graham's making is, in this scenario, the light's on the dark people and the people whose faces were shining, and in this one it's very specific, only on one group. So here it's on two groups, here it's only on one group. So that's and on here it's still the same group, the one group. Sister Brittany.
It cherishes it throughout.
Yep.
Yep.
So doesn't that tear that down? If you're making a separation between the second group and the first group, then you're saying that the first group who cherished it doesn't join the second group. Or am I
No, I'll just repeat what Brother Graham said. You can attack it. It's the messenger. He just said that this one, the light's on everyone, and here the light's only on one group. The people that successfully navigated, because somewhere around here, they're in total darkness. I think when they try to wrap them back up, the people just remain in darkness. We're going to stop, but I just want to make one point. We always talk about the first and second angels' messages, like it's it's straightforward. But from here to here, how many angels did we see? From here to here. No, from here to here, which only where it says many. Up to here. One angel. And what happens is the people join the angel in harmony. When you get to this dynamic, it's not the same. You have one angel and then you have these multiple angels. And I want to remind us, it says in the passage clearly that these angels unite with this one. Therefore, these angels are not the second angel. And over again in our message, we teach, just like, don't worry about any of that, you just got a 2E here. We call it the empowerment of the second, and that may be a correct term, but I want us to know that it's not the same dynamic as here when we've got the empowerment of the first, because you've only got a singular angel all the way through here. Here you've got two groups of angels. You've got a singular angel and these other angels, and then with these other angels, then the human people join with them. So you've got three groups here, two groups of angels in unity, and the human agent in harmony. So whatever that means, I want us to see that often the way we teach our reform line, we'll just have the first angel's message, and then we'll do the second angel's message, it's not quite correct, because actually you've got the second plus other angels. We'll stop there. Time's pressing on. 5 minutes to it. Does anybody have any prayer requests?